Hello and welcome to 101. I'm Vernon Ramazan. I'm very pleased to say my guest today is Minister of National Security, Captain Gary Griffith. Welcome back to the program. Last time you were here, of course, you weren't Minister of anything, I don't believe.
That's right. Thank you, sir.
So first of all, let me ask you, you're obviously following in the heels of many people before you who have tried to get a handle on the lawlessness in this country. What is your approach and how is it going to be different to what we saw before?
Well, I intend to cut my own trail, and what I am doing is not based on what we have seen before, previous administrations, previous ministers, where the concept for national security has usually been one based on ideas, based on crime plans, based on hit and hope. Yes, the country is demanding instant results, but the quick fix is what has caused us to be behind the eight ball on numerous occasions. And that is where we have the Anacondas, the Baghdads, and other initiatives. And this is not being political. The fact of the matter is that we have never dealt with national security from the scientific perspective, which is what I am doing. So whereas many people will continue to harp on the fact that, that they want to have an immediate quick win, what we have seen before is what you call standard operation procedures. So you will hear a crime plan is more police vehicles, more patrols, more roadblocks. Those are standard operation procedures. What I am doing is I am setting a foundation, a proper platform for national security. So when when ministers of national security will come and go, when ministers change, when I leave, if there's a change of administration or whatever, we will continue to have a direction that we will continue to move forward in. Every time there's a change of administration or a change in ministers of national security, you start from scratch. And the only people who benefit from that are the criminal elements because they have a structure and they're moving forward. So what I am doing is setting up proper national security framework. I am setting foundations, I am setting policies, and that is the only way that you will turn this country into a safe country, not by the quick wins and the ideas. Everyone has an idea to stop crime because you are affected, and ideas, that is not the solution. That cannot be a solution to reduce crime. What you have to do is a lot of data, empirical testing, research, and then you can utilize your national security resources in that manner. So what I am doing, however, is actually looking at speaking to different agencies, numerous from different aspects of different political parties, NGOs, religious organizations, different bodies, even the average man in the street, and hearing what they have to say. But upon that, I mean, you can get thousands of what you call crime plans. I am not implementing crime plans. What I am doing is setting a national security framework and a proper structure.
And it's evidence-based.
That's right, and it has to be that way. It can't be anywhere else. What I'm looking at, I've been looking at the support from the present Commissioner of Police from New York City, Bill Bratton, who actually was here just a few months ago, prior to him being reappointed as the Commissioner of Police, and the then Mayor of New York City, who actually worked with Bill Bratton at the time when the major criminal activities in New York actually was reduced over 50%. And this is not to piggyback and copy on what was done in New York City, but there's a scientific aspect towards reducing crime. And we are looking at systems and policies such as CompStat, computerized statistics, better intelligence gathering, improvement of the detection rate, how it is done through better crime scene investigation, the concept of human intelligence, getting citizens to pass information on without being fear of intimidation, the importance of training the police officers, weeding out the rogue elements, and all of these things could only be set up through policies and not just setting up crime plans.
How do you handle the pressure? Because obviously this year has not started off well in terms of the homicide figure. How do you handle the pressure for immediate action that must be upon you at all times? Because, I mean, you are also a politician. So how do you handle that constant people saying, do something, do something, do something, we want it done now?
Well, I think I'll always be a soldier first before I'm a politician. And based on my training at the Royal Military at Sandhurst, and also being in the Defense Force for 17 years, I have been there at being with the other barrel of a gun being pointed at me, being involved in problems we had when I was actually in England in Sandhurst with the IRA, the attempted coup, being involved in Haiti with the United Nations. So I am fully prepared for this. I never expected to come here and make friends. I expected that I would have to step on toes and do what is required, and this is what I will do. If it is that I actually have to open that Pandora's box to actually deal with the situation, I would. And some people have said that there's too much talk and more action, which again shows the concept of person's lack of knowledge and understanding criminological theory, because it is important that whoever wears that hat at that time, you need to communicate with the public. You need to make them be aware of what is happening. And this is the concept of to succeed in reducing crime is communication. It involves letting people be aware, this is our intention, this is what we intend to do, and this is when we will get there and how we will do it. And people need to understand the concept of the national security initiatives, not just having it set there. And I could give you examples like the Rapid Response Unit, which has come out recently, the Highway Patrol, the concept of the National Operations Center, the reigniting relations between Venezuela and Colombia. All of these things I've done in the last 4 months whilst I've been in office. And these things, it is important that it is discussed for people to be aware of the role and function of these things, what are the benefits for it, so that people will be able to buy into it and understand. Because there's also the other concern, well, it's two missions that I have. The first mission is obviously to reduce crime, but secondly, the perception and fear of crime is sometimes just as important as the reduction of crime itself. Going back to New York City, when the murder rate was reduced by over 53%, for 2 years, the average citizen in New York did not feel safe. So there's two different things that you have to do. You have to actually reduce crime, but you have to take away that perception and fear of crime, and you can only do that through communication and through letting people be aware that things are changing and there's going to be a difference in the national security policy of the country.
I had Renee Cummings, who I know you know very well,
Yes.
On recently for a couple of interviews, and she was saying one of the things we need to stop doing in this country is talking about statistics, because the public doesn't really care about
Correct.
statistics. They know that people are dying, whether it's more or less, and it's about their fear of being out in public. So
Yes.
that comes down to that perception again, doesn't it?
Most definitely. I mean, I have heard before about the increase or the decrease in crime, and speaking about major criminal activities, it has decreased. The average citizen, they don't want to hear that. They are not feeling comfortable. They are not feeling safe. What you can do, however, is use the importance of statistics to assist in reducing crime itself through ComStat, computerized statistics, which was something initiated through Mayor Giuliani and Bill Bratton. The importance of computerized statistics, it has never been done before. When I discussed this in Parliament recently, then Senator Fitzgerald Hines said, but we've always used ComStat over the last 10 years. When I brought Mayor Giuliani here in 2002, he introduced the concept of ComStat and hotspots. And the then administration, they thought that ComStat was just to get information and data of criminal activities. It is not. ComStat also shows it can give a good prediction of where the next criminal act may take place. ComStat also helps in analyzing where the law enforcement agencies should focus their resources on to minimize criminal activities, to provide the deterrent, and to provide an immediate response if it does happen. So that is the importance of statistics. Statistics should not be used to try to influence the public. Statistics should be used to try to reduce criminal activities.
As you're talking about technology there, I mean, for many, many years we've been throwing billions of dollars at national security.
Yes.
And to the best of my knowledge, we are not the most computerized police service in the world.
Yes.
I mean, the average officer can't go in his car and check something.
I think if you remember
If I'm pulling over this car, oh, it's got priors or it's wanted for
I think
something.
remember the Fred Flintstone in the dinosaur era with Bedrock. The police, I think the Bedrock police actually were a little more scientific than what we have in technology, and it is important. And we are going down in that direction. And I can actually show you the system that we have right now through the use of technology, the National Operations Center. It is the first time that the country we're actually getting a communication platform, getting all the different agencies working together, getting real-time information from the radar being fed to the Operations Center. Information can then be passed on to the Coast Guard. We never had it before, so that technology is critical. And if you do not have that technology to provide real-time information, all you're doing with the technology is just getting footage to actually deal with it after the fact.
After the fact, yeah.
So, for example, the radar may pick up a vessel entering our shores illegally, but there's no immediate real-time video footage with someone actually monitoring it and getting information onto the agencies for interception. So through the National Operations Center, what it is actually doing is getting that feed from the radar straight to the Coast Guard, getting information from the SSA, turning into intelligence to have an immediate response with the police. The 999, where someone will make a call, and now through the NOC, it will now be fed straight to the rapid response.
Or
911,
yeah.
And it can be fed straight to the rapid response unit. So that is the concept of technology that we are using in the right manner. Also, the use of ComStat, and finally, we are going to put that same system of technology into the vehicles, in the police vehicles, where the officer can now get information through real time, whether it is license plates of vehicles, to make sure it will mesh with the vehicle itself to see if it's stolen, the driver's permits of individuals, so that you can actually get a database of the individuals. And all of this can only have taken place through the National Operations Center. Many people claim that we try to politicize crime. I could give you the concept of SORT. It was in the right direction. And the reason why I speak about SORT with the NOC is whereas SORT was seen to be competitive and absorbing funds and competing with the law enforcement agencies, the National Operations Center is doing just the opposite. What it is there is to provide that support mechanism, that communication platform to get the agencies to work together through technology and to provide real-time information for real-time results.
No, as I mentioned 911, the fact that we've got that option now as well, because we watch TV and the first thing people automatically dial, even though they've known for years it's not the right number, now it is as well. That is still just exclusively police, isn't it? That is to get a hold for security purposes.
Well, what we are trying to set up as well,
it's not a unified system as other places would have.
Yes, but it is a system for an immediate response for policing. But for example, if someone has any concern pertaining to a fire, pertaining to information that they want to pass on to the agencies, we are putting specific numbers as well. For example, someone might just want to report a crime, and well, through the 999 and the 911. What it provides is that immediate response. It provides that deterrence where before the deterrent will not be there because someone might call 999 and you won't have a police vehicle. The rapid response will ensure that you will have that immediate response. When that rapid response vehicle arrives at the scene or based on that call, then you can ascertain what type of support is required that can be sent back to the NOC, whether it be ambulance, fire services, you need aerial support, you need it's a crowd control, you need more police officers or the presence of the army. So what it is doing is it facilitates for a rapid response, and when that unit gets to the scene of where that call was made, you can then they then ascertain what is required.
And I was asking because my brother's a police officer in Toronto, and I had asked him once why Toronto's homicide rate is so low. And he said, well, actually, it would be a lot higher, except our emergency response is so quick, people don't die.
It's quite ironic. When I drafted this whole concept of the RRU and the NOC and so forth, it had a lot to do, in fact, with Canada. I don't try to piggyback off what I see in other countries. I look at the threat assessment in Trinidad and Tobago and see what can be utilized, what I've seen elsewhere. In Toronto has something called CPIC, Canadian Police Information Center. And I looked at the concept of CPIC, took some of the what I've seen from one police plaza in New York, and then I looked at the threat assessment in Trinidad and Tobago. Therein, we came up with the National Operations Center. Likewise, with the rapid response, I understood why it is that in Toronto it is so safe is because of that system. We never had that system before in this country. You will call 999 and then you will hear there are no vehicles, there are no police officers, people will turn up 2 hours later. And that would have caused the criminals firstly to realize, listen, I could jump over a wall, I could commit a crime, and I know there's not going to be a response. So the concept of the immediate response through the NOC, through the 999 being effective now, and through that rapid response, it will ensure firstly that the criminal elements, it will provide that deterrent. They know that at any minute that vehicle could turn up. Secondly, it provides that, it reduces that perception and fear of crime that I just spoke about, that the citizen can now feel safe to know that, listen, I do not need to hire a private security company. I know I could just dial 999. If there's a concern, within minutes, a vehicle can turn up at my home. And finally, and sometimes just as important, there are many situations, we've had situations before where there may be a minor criminal activity that will take place, and because we do not have that immediate response, it may have turned into a major criminal act. For example, whether it is a domestic matter between a husband and wife, or 2 guys just arguing in a bar. If someone makes that call now, that immediate response can minimize that threat and turn that from just being a misdemeanor instead of it turning into a murder. So it shows the importance of it. And that is why it is I've looked at different systems, look at the different scenarios, and try to mesh it into a proper national organizational structure indicative of the threat assessment in Trinidad and Tobago.
No, without being political at all, and not to judge your predecessors, do you find yourself now, as Minister of National Security, thinking, we spent so much money, why am I looking at this shambles of a system that we have?
Well, it'll be difficult, and I always stated that when I took over this position, I do not intend to politicize it in any way, because as soon as you do that, you step back before you even start. Because at least if you look at arguably just less than half of the country may support one party over the other. Yeah. When you politicize a position as a Minister of National Security, you automatically you sever half of the support base, and I'm speaking about law-abiding citizens. So the enemy that I see are really those persons that are criminals. So I wouldn't want to point fingers at who did what and who was incorrect and who didn't do it. Okay. But there have been problems we've had before, and I do not intend for us to regurgitate the same problems, which is that we have situations where persons will just look to pump hundreds of millions of dollars into systems that they actually see that this is the be-all and end-all, and it might make us look politically good. When we do that, there is a domino effect. that domino effect of spending exorbitant funds in national security, you have to pay for it, but you have to pay for it. There's inflation. Inflation may cause increased unemployment. Unemployment may cause escalation in crime. So you have to be very careful how you spend your money in national security. You can't just say, well, every life is important, so let's just spend tens of billions of dollars. There must be cost-benefit analysis. And therein lies the problem what we had recently. And I'll just give you an example, and this is not being political, it's just unfortunate it happened. The system of the OPVs, when people continue to speak about the OPVs, when you ask the average person, explain the value of the OPV, well, it would have stopped crime, it would have stopped the drug dealers. No, that is not an avenue. If that is the case, then we should purchase a battleship, we should purchase an aircraft carrier, we should purchase 5 submarines. These things would. You must have cost-benefit analysis. And cost-benefit analysis would have shown that based on the threat assessment in our country, you do not need 3 90-meter vessels, because the threat assessment for the infiltration of guns, weapons, and illegal immigrants, it's through the South American mainland to the Gulf of Paria with a span with water of a couple miles. Anything with a couple miles, you do not use a 90-meter vessel. The 90-meter vessel is for deep water. Deep water is to secure our exclusive economic zone north and east of Trinidad and Tobago from 12 miles to 200 miles. That is not where the drugs are coming. That is to secure, so the OPV is to secure your exclusive economic zone. That, in fact, was why it was being purchased. It was also being purchased to secure a pipeline that was going to be built from Trinidad and Tobago to Jamaica, which was never done. So you purchase security mechanisms to secure an asset that was never even implemented. And that is where it is I have concerns. I have concerns when we purchase helicopters, the 4 Augusta helicopters. We put the cost price for one is 85 million TT, but we paid over 85 million US for each. So we're speaking about over $1,500 million that we spent.
Well, but a lot of that comes from the fact that when questions were asked before, you always had this, it's a matter of national security. We can't tell you. So you could never really question.
That has always been the excuse that governments will use when they make mistakes or corruption. I mean, just recently, India shut down the Augusta Westland because of the fact that the Augusta Westland, they were accused of actually paying kickbacks to government officials. Is that what happened here? There's an audit, and the audit is not to point fingers or to go witch hunting. The audit is to make sure that we do things in the right manner, and we select the right type of helicopters, aircraft, UAVs that are required, which is part of the policy I speak about. Likewise, with the OPV, you don't just say national security. You have to explain, why do you want 3 OPVs? Why not 4? Why not 1? And the average person, you must not be political. You must not just support what I'm saying because you may be supportive of the government. You must not support the ministers of national security and the PNM because you support them. You need to sit down and ascertain, explain why, show me why, and in comparison to what. So the OPV was another example. The BAE OPV, the cost was $800 million. But I have gone to get the similar type vessels in Colombia, Korea, China, Israel, and Holland, and they all cost $400 million, which is over $400 million less. And then when you do the research, you find out that BAE, they have been accused by 17 countries for paying kickbacks to government officials. And again, this is not, whoever made a mistake, it is irrelevant, but I intend to make sure the country gets value for their dollar. So instead of spending $2,400 million on 3 OPVs, what we're doing is acquiring 1 effective long-range patrol vessel that can secure our exclusive economic zone. And then we'll have just about $2,000 million now to secure the parts that really that are porous, and that will include the whole Gulf of Paria and the South Coast. With this now, we can purchase and acquire the type of items that we really need, which is
smaller vessels, but
interceptors,
more efficient in terms of movement.
Very fast, ensuring that the radar is effective now, 360, that can have a feed to the NOC that we never had before, making sure we acquire UAVs that can monitor when these vessels enter our shores from Venezuela, and we can see, not just intercept, but can monitor where they're going, which bridge in Chaguanas they're dropping off the goods in, when the vehicle moves. So what we're doing is setting up a proper framework, the proper helicopters that we will acquire, Coast Guard floating platforms around the island so that we can lock it down, put in GPS on each Coast Guard vessel to make sure they stay in their area of responsibility, and also the importance of us working with Venezuela and Colombia, which we never had before. So the concept of communicating with your allies to secure your borders, it is 100 times more effective than purchasing 100 OPVs. We had the concept of the OPVs, but you can't have a vessel just wander aimlessly. You need the importance of intelligence. And Venezuela and Colombia, for 5 and 8 years, we had security agreements with them, and it sat. We did nothing. Within the last 4 months, I have reopened dialogue, and it is the first time now we actually have the Venezuelan government come into Trinidad and Tobago and vice versa, and Colombia.
You can share intelligence.
Sharing of intelligence. The sharing of intelligence is now what we have is that if the Venezuelan government, they pick up any intelligence of a vessel leaving Venezuela, they will contact us. Vice versa. We now have the La Guardia Nacional actually working with Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force in training, in operations. And here in the Venezuela government, for the first time, state that the La Guardia Nacional cannot abuse their position, and they must work within the framework of their borders and not infringe on the borders of Trinidad and Tobago.
But you mentioned that this is not a political business, but the business of national security. And yet, you're right as we speak, you're still dealing with a situation where the leader of the opposition doesn't want to meet with you. I know you've met with Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Perhaps you can tell us how that went. But I mean, it has become so political, it's almost impossible to extricate it from politics.
I will continue to hope and pray that better sense will prevail for persons who take an oath. And they need to remember that when you made that oath, it had nothing to do with your political party. It had to do with you serving the citizens of this country. Serving the citizens of this country, it was not based on what party card they had in their back pocket, but each and every citizen in the concept of national security for the country likewise. I can't politicize my position. I mean, even if you look at the hotspot areas based on computerized statistics, as unfortunate or coincidental or whatever the reason, but the majority of the hotspot areas are actually in the areas of where the 13 members of parliament for the opposition, where they reside, in those constituencies. So what do I do? Because I'm the Minister of National Security in a People's Partnership government, I do not have communication with them. That'll be unfair, not just to the country, but especially to those citizens in those constituencies. So what I am doing, and I will continue to do, is to speak to those members of parliament, all members of parliament, hearing their concerns, seeing because the only way I can actually utilize the resources in the right manner is by dialogue. And if we're doing this from a national security perspective, it is common sense that we should communicate with the opposition. And this is not just based on coming up with us negotiating to agree to legislation, but agree to specific anti-crime initiatives that both parties can agree to. So if it is that there's a change in a Minister of National Security or even an administration, we know this is our direction. We have done it too often, where in the days of General Theodore, when the murder rate was less than 93, as soon as he left and the administration changed, they shut down the Joint Operational Command Center, they shut down the E999, they shut down community policing. And this is not to point fingers, because the opposition can say the same thing. When they changed, they shut down the OPVs, we shut down SORT. What is going to happen if I am removed? Are we going to shut down the National Operations Center, the Highway Patrol, the Rapid Response, the VIPO, Virtual Police Officer, which I'm initiating, and the several other initiatives? The answer should be no. People should understand that policy should not be based on and be owned by a political party or a government. We are setting framework policies that we will continue and move forward with that policy and just improve on it. Yes, it will be tweaks based on the perception of the government or the minister, but we must stop. We always play catch up at the end, and this is why it is important that the opposition understands what I am doing and they understand what this government is doing, and it involves dialogue. It involves putting your political party card where it belongs, because this is, whereas people say that election preparation starts the day after an election. My focus right now is to deal with reducing crime in this country, and the only way to do that is to have that open door policy.
It's sort of interesting that you have this sort of current problem with the leader of the opposition, because you're one of the first, well, actually the first Minister of National Security I can think of where you've actually said sort of good things about things that the previous administration had done.
Yeah, because
and you said it just a while ago, sort of was not necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah, I intend to call a spade a spade. There were very good initiatives that they had with SORT and the OPV. And don't get me wrong, the OPV it is critical to secure your exclusive economic zone. What you did not need is an OPV that was 90 meters, or to have 3, I should say, to have it at the cost of 2 times the price. And even when you purchase the 3 OPVs, they didn't have the manpower strength. You only had enough sailors to man 1. So 2 of them would have been parked up here. There would have still been more in Stobers because they didn't have the manpower strength. But the concept was important, and it shows where there should have been dialogue whilst they were in government. Likewise with SORT. The concept of SORT is important, because you need to have that type of unit, that organization, that acts as an agency that cannot be involved in what can I put it, that agency that can guard the guards, if you want to call it that. But what happened, unfortunately, with SORT, there was bad management, and it started being perceived as being competitive to the police. It started being perceived as trying to do policing work and extracting a lot of the assets from the police service. And once you get that, and there's not a buy-in, the police started resenting SWOT. There were fight for information, and SWOT was not as effective as it should be.
There was a pay difference as well, which of course...
There was a big, when you give one unit 5,000 more than the other, when you bring 60 foreign use British persons who retired and they refused to hand over information to their second in command who were locals because they were getting $150,000 a month. Those things obviously meant that there were concerns, but I don't like to throw the baby with the bathwater when it comes to national security. If there were good initiatives and SWOT, things that could be of value, I would extract it and we will utilize it. Such as, for example, they had a DATS team, a Direct Action Task Force. No one knew what they were doing. What we are having now is a National Security Special Operation Group, that elite unit, whether, you see it worldwide, the Navy SEALs, the MI6, whatever, that elite unit that is properly trained, prepared, and ready for any type of counter-terrorist activity, hostage
Don't we have that
negotiation.
already, like MOPS? Isn't that?
No. This is something a special. The MOPS is something that is always there. You always see them on the ground. The special forces from the army. But I'm speaking about an elite team that is not under the umbrella of basic daily operations of the police or the defense force. And that is a unit that is highly trained and not in any way compromised. We have these concerns of the law enforcement agencies with individuals who are perceived to be rogue elements. You need to have that unit that in no way they are compromised in any way. And that helps a lot with certain operations. So if you have a major operation, you don't know, you don't have to be concerned that it's being compromised. When I was in the army, on many occasions...
We're almost completely out of time, I should mention.
Yeah, we go straight into the location, and before we even get there, the criminals will open the door expecting you. So what we are doing is setting up policies, we're setting up initiatives, we are doing things to make the citizens feel safe and put in systems to ensure that crime would go down, but the perception of crime will also be reduced.
Minister Gary Griffith, it's been a great pleasure having you on the programme, and I think you kind of halfway promised before we started that you'd come back again for another half-hour session next week's time. Thank you so much for being on the programme.
My pleasure.
Thank you. You've been watching One on One. Join us again tomorrow for another edition.